Welcome back to another episode of Camera Moves that filmmakers like yourself should remember. This is the show where I go over unique camera moves that you're most likely not going to find in any filmmaking textbook. These aren't your typical pans and dollies. These are unique camera moves that have been used with specific purposes in mind for specific metaphorical reasons. I'm going to tell you what those metaphorical purposes are, I'm going to tell you how I would pull off the camera move, and I'm going to give each camera move a unique name so that you can more easily remember it next time you're on set. But first, subscribe, like, and put a random comment in the comments because I need that for the algorithm. Now let's get to it. First up, we have what I like to call the Rolling Reframe, and I've only seen this in one movie, and that's the movie Punch Drunk Love, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and it's when Adam Sandler's character is in his apartment talking on an adult hotline. The camera is focused on him sitting in this chair when all of a sudden it just decides to pan to the left. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Kevin, you said at the beginning of this video that there weren't just going to be any typical pans. Well, my friend, this isn't just a pan. This is a pan with a purpose. Because typically when you see the camera pan, it is usually to show something, not nothing. It's almost as if the cinematographer in this situation just accidentally bumped the camera and just went with it. Which actually might have happened. There are rumors about that, but I can't confirm that, so just take that with a grain of salt. But either way, even if this was an accident, they decided to keep it in the film, which means that the director saw something in this camera move that he liked. But what is it? What did he like about this camera move? It's kind of weird and it feels like it's unmotivated. Well, when something abnormal happens in a film, the first thing you need to do is just pause for a minute and ask yourself, why did that happen? Because most directors are at least competent enough to not let errors go through to the final cut. They keep things in there for a reason. And usually that reason is to draw attention to something or to make a metaphorical point. And in this situation, I think the most obvious metaphorical point that the director might be drawing from this camera move is just drawing attention to the empty space, drawing attention to the empty chair at the other end of the table. It is drawing attention to the fact that Adam Sandler's character is lonely. But I do have to say the tricky thing with metaphors is that there might be an infinite number of interpretations that you can apply to this. Maybe not infinite, but at least 5. The director could be drawing attention to the fact that the character's mind is ADHD and he can't keep his thinking straight for more than 2 seconds. Or this could be a metaphor of the camera representing the tides of Adam Sandler's character's life shifting so that he is more impeded by a wall in front of him. You see what I'm doing? We are mammals, we are pattern-seeking creatures, and I am drawing connections between as many concepts and words and making them fit my preferred interpretation for what is going on here. You know, art is a little subjective and you can be creative with your interpretation of it sometimes. That's not saying that all interpretations are equally valid, but you know, it's a complicated issue. So I don't know, let me know in the comments what you think that this camera move means and if you think it's a good one, because you might not like this camera move. I kind of am on the fence about it because it does draw attention to the cameraman and it kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit, but you know, some people really love it. So let me know in the comments if you do. And obviously the way you do this is just pan the camera. Next we have what I like to call the Flashback Flyby, and this move I found in the movie Lady Snowblood, and it's when Lady Snowblood is talking to this man and he starts yapping about something that happened in the past in 1873, and then the director decides to basically go to a flashback or more like a narrative retelling of what happened in 1873, but instead of just cutting to that narrative retelling, he pans the camera to the right past Lady Snowblood and zooms past her, and then the camera eventually cuts to a graphic retelling. I think the metaphor behind this camera move is basically looking past someone, looking behind them, looking into the past behind them, but that way. Behind me is that's the past, that's the future. So you go that way and you're looking into the past. It just makes sense, I think. And again, this move is not that difficult to pull off. You just need a tripod and you need to pan it, and then you do need a good smooth zoom lens to zoom past, but you don't even have to worry about the focus because the focus in the background doesn't matter in this situation. You can even zoom into the background and then in post make it blur even more and then do like a little dream effect and then go into your flashback. I'm sure someone can find an example of that happening in another movie or TV show, so please let me know in the comments if you know where this has been used before. How in the world did the Coen brothers find a camera small enough to fit inside the hole of a bowling ball? In the movie The Big Lebowski, we see this shot, which comes from the perspective of a bowling ball as it is rolling down the lane. It looks like the camera is literally inside the bowling ball. Well, you'll be disappointed to know that they didn't actually find a camera small enough to fit inside the hole of a bowling ball. Here's Roger Deakins explaining how they did it.
We had the camera on a spit like literally, you know, a revolving spit on a dolly. So somebody's pushing the dolly, the camera's over that, and then somebody's revolving the spit. So it is very simple, really.
Well, there it is. I don't really have much else to say about this besides I'm not sure exactly when else you would use this kind of a shot, what other situation you would use it in besides bowling. Maybe a biopic about Jack and Jill tumbling down the hill or something. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any ideas. If you're a cinematographer, you should remember this camera move from The Big Lebowski. In this scene, we see the dude, Donnie, and Walter sitting at the counter. When the dude pisses off Walter by saying he doesn't care about the bowling tournament, Donnie and Walter leave, and then the camera starts to focus solely on the dude. It dollies forward into a single shot, and this puts the audience in the mindset of the dude who is really focusing on his own thoughts. He is closed off from the world around him. He is only focused on the thing he is thinking about. This provides an opportunity for the stranger to sit right next to him without him knowing, and without the audience knowing. Because as the camera pulls back out, we see that the stranger is indeed sitting next to him, unbeknownst to the dude. I think this camera move is great because it does two things. First, it metaphorically puts the audience in the mindset of the main character because it is representing how he is focused on what he is thinking about and not concerned about the world around him. But it also is just a practical way to sneakily put someone in a shot if you want to be sneaky. And that's why I call this shot the sneaky stranger shot. Pull the shot off, you're gonna need a dolly or a steady cam, or I mean, you could hand hold it if you want it to look ugly, but you're also gonna need to pull focus really well. And you're also gonna need two really handsome fellers. This next camera move is a camera move. It's not really a camera move, but it mimics one. If you guys want to show that your character is focusing on something on screen or just draw attention to an object or a person, and you don't want to use a more in-your-face snap style zoom, then you can do this technique that I found in Bones and All, which is basically just 3 frames edited together, each frame getting closer to the subject. This zoom is more disjointed than a regular zoom, but because of that, I think it gives a more creepy, like off-putting kind of vibe. I also think it's a little less goofy or humorous than a snap zoom, so if you still want the metaphor of your character focusing on something or just drawing your attention to something on screen and you don't want it as humorous, then maybe go with this option. One thing I also find cool about this is that you don't actually have to change the focal length of your lens. You can keep the same focal length and then just move the camera closer each time. And I call this one the stutter snap. Next up, we have a camera move that is guaranteed to instill panic and fear in your viewer. I call it the panic pan. In the 1969 movie The Wild Bunch, these men are chasing this man who is hiding in these rocks. When the cowboys get to this rock formation, they say,
$10 says he's dead by now.
If he isn't, he's holding a gun on us right now.
And then this happens. The cowboys frantically search for the man in the rocks, whipping their heads back and forth. And the director emphasizes this frantic searching by intercutting these shots of the cowboys with these shots of their heads whipping back and forth, basically from a first-person perspective. So basically, the next time you have a character who is frantically searching for something, just mimic their head moves with a first-person shot. And this is most easily going to be done handheld or with a shoulder rig. This next camera move comes from the 1966 movie Daisies, which is a very quirky, charming, and weird movie. And one of the ways that the director makes it quirky and charming and weird is by using quirky and charming and weird camera moves, like this one. Here we see these 2 women trying to get into this old man's pants when the camera just zooms out 3 times. And I think that's cool. If you know anything about me in this channel, is that you know I love spinning camera moves. You got the upside down flippy dolly, you got the spinneroo, you got the tornado, and you got 2 more that I'm about to talk about in this video right now, and one of those is the dancing dolly. I found this in the movie Carnival of Souls, and it's basically just when the camera is in the perspective of a dancing partner. So just imagine you have 2 people dancing, and then the camera's one of those people. Now, to be fair, the dancing is very simple in this case. It's just 2 people spinning around and around and around, but I still think that's cool because it's a spinning camera move. In order to pull this off, though, you would need something maybe like a circular dolly track, or better yet, some kind of rotating dolly like this person made on YouTube. One thing I do find interesting about this specific move, though, is that it doesn't really look like they're dancing necessarily. It looks like they're gliding. If they were dancing, I would expect them to like be wobbling more, but they're kind of just like which is a little creepy. Like I said, this is a dream sequence, so maybe there's some variations you can do. If you need a dream sequence, if you need it to be creepy, make them glide. If you need it to be more of a realistic dance scene, then maybe you can just even handheld it and just follow the actor. I don't know. But I trust you, so do what you want. The next spinning camera move I have to talk about is called the Whirlpool. The Whirlpool. That's a hard word for me to say, but you know, that's what it's called. There's nothing I can do about it, even though I came up with the name. And I found this in the short film I Have No Legs and I Must Run. It's a pretty great short film on Vimeo. You should go check it out. But it's basically just when a camera is above people. In this case, it's probably a drone just spinning on an axis, not really moving, just spinning. But what makes this instance of it so great is that it has contrasting lines of motion. And what I mean by that is if you look closely, it looks like the people are running counterclockwise while the outside of the stadium looks like it's rotating clockwise. And so they're kind of competing and contrasting. And one thing I learned in film school is that contrast is one of the foundational principles of not only cinematography but storytelling and movie making in general. Not only contrast in like the blacks and the whites of an image, not only contrast in the tones of one scene versus another scene, but also the contrast in motion, as you can see here. Basically, this just creates a more interesting, hypnotic kind of effect. And to do this, you would need a drone. Finally, we have one of my favorite shots of all time, and it is also the shot that I am most confident that I gave the right name to, and that name is the Dozer Dolly, like a bulldozer dolly. It has alliteration, Dozer Dolly, 2 Ds, and it perfectly describes what's happening, even though it's not technically on a dolly, but it looks like a dolly move. So anyway, in the 1927 film Wings, we see the camera basically just charge towards these people having dinner, and it kind of just barrels through them somehow. That doesn't seem like it would be even possible because a shot like this is typically done on a dolly, and a dolly would just run right into these tables, but this doesn't apparently, at least not that we see. So how did they do this? A quick Google search shows that it was achieved using a special built inverted rig hanging from an overhead rail. So it was suspended from above, which is pretty cool for a movie made in 1927. And it's worth mentioning again that this is the perfect name for this camera move because it looks like it's a bulldozer. It looks like the dolly is a bulldozer just running right over all these people, and I'm really proud of myself for that name. So there you have it. Those are 10 more camera moves that filmmakers like yourself should remember. And I just wanted to show you these camera moves as inspiration for your next film. I know I'm not the best talker. I know I'm not the most in-depth person ever, but I am doing this primarily for myself, honestly, to just have a repertoire of cool camera moves that I can reference and just basically steal for my next project. So, I mean, if you want to steal them too, go ahead. What do I care? It's not stealing, I'm joking. If every time an artist did something some other artist did, we wouldn't have art anymore. Like what? So you can't use a close-up shot because someone already used a close-up shot before? No, that's stupid. Just take all these things and use them for your own selfish gain. But not before liking and subscribing and commenting which one is your favorite in the comments below. And if you have any questions or concerns or ideas for future videos, something you would like to see, please let me know in the comments as well. Please, I'm just begging for comments at this point. I'll see you next time.